Hello everyone. Today I will continue sharing with you the story of the single mother Diệu Hân. I hope you enjoy watching this video. After some time living together, Han gradually realized that On always carried a hidden sorrow. The longing for her old home, the place tied to her childhood and the memories she had lost. Many nights, Han would wake up and see On quietly sitting by the window, her eyes empty as they gazed into the distant forest, as if searching for something left unfinished. As a close friend, Han understood that if On never found that place again, the wound in her heart would never truly heal. Han recalled the words of the police officer. If you want to search, go back along the trail by the dry stream. You might still find traces. That thought pushed Han to decide. She must go with her friend on this journey. The next morning, while mountain fog still blanketed the slopes, Han softly said to On, I don't want to see you sad anymore. Today let's go find your old home. On froze, her eyes brimming with tears. She nodded gently, her trembling hand gripping her friend's, as if clinging to one last hope. They carried some food, a few essential tools, and the rough map marked by the police. The forest path was muddy and slippery after the rain, but both girls were filled with determination. Whenever On grew tired, Han would smile and encourage her. I'm here with you. No matter what happens, at least we've walked this path together to the end. This journey was not just about finding a house for On, but about reclaiming the very roots of her life. By noon, after climbing a steep slope, what appeared before them was a moss-covered foundation, a few rotted wooden beams, and standing tall in the center, an old mango tree, its rough trunk still spreading a canopy of green. On broke down, falling to her knees, trembling as she touched each surviving brick. Han stood silently behind her, her own eyes red. She knew that On had finally found a piece of her most important memory. Yet, even as On cried and laughed, the fragments in her mind were still scattered, too hazy to form a complete story. Han only felt compassion for her friend. She didn't know that behind these broken walls, there once was a man tied deeply to On, someone Han also knew, Tan. In the past, Tan had loved On deeply. But after the great misfortune, On disappeared, and all news of her vanished. Tan suffered in silence, until fate led him to meet Han and walk a new path. Still, that first love remained buried in his heart as an unhealed wound. Now, as Han brought On back to her old home, destiny once again intertwined the lives of three people. Han remained innocent, treating On as her dearest friend, unaware that she was slowly leading Tana's first love back into his life. As for On, the naive girl crying before the ruined foundation, she still remembered nothing of that love. In her heart were only vague blanks, fleeting feelings of strange familiarity, but no name to hold on to. A strong wind rustled through the old mango tree. Han tightened her grip on her friend's hand and spoke sincerely. On, from now on this place will no longer be just your lonely memory. No matter what, I'll be here with you. On nodded, but deep in her eyes flickered a stirring she couldn't explain, as if her soul had brushed against something long lost from the distant past. A few days after finding the old house, Han and On decided to clean it up. They brought brooms, machetes, and some sacks to collect dry leaves and rubble. Though the work was tiring, their faces glowed with joy. For On, each sweep of the broom over the thick dust felt like brushing away the fog that clouded her memory. At that very moment, Tan heard from a villager. Two strange girls were cleaning up an abandoned house at the end of the dry stream. His heart skipped a beat. That house, he knew it too well. It was the very place where On had once lived. The girl he thought was lost forever. Unable to hold back, Tan rushed there. From afar he saw Han crouched down, tying up a rotted door, while On sat on the porch, hair falling over her face, hands covered in dirt. That moment made his chest tighten. The familiar image felt as though time had never passed. Hân, Ánh. Tan called softly, his voice trembling. Han looked up and smiled in surprise. Brother Tan, you came too? Great, with your help we'll finish much faster. An looked at him, eyes flickering with confusion. She felt he was familiar, but her mind was blank. Only her heart suddenly beat faster, as if answering to a hidden memory. Tan stepped closer, his emotions surging. Memories flooded back, but he forced them down, afraid of shattering the fragile peace. An only bent down to pick up more leaves and said with a faint, awkward smile, "Thank you for coming to help. I feel like I've met you somewhere before, haven't I?" That question shook Tan to the core. He looked into her hazy eyes, the very sky of his youth, now so painfully distant. Standing between them, Han remained oblivious to the undercurrent, cheerfully saying, "That's right, An. Tan is my close friend. From now on, the three of us will work together. This house will definitely come back to life." As the afternoon sun dimmed, the three stood side by side, working together. But only Tan understood. This wasn't just cleaning an old house. It was reopening a door to memory, where love, friendship, and truth still lay asleep. In the days that followed, they continued restoring the house. Han was always cheerful, treating it as a new adventure in friendship. An slowly found peace, though at times her eyes still reflected an emptiness, like a missing piece she couldn't name. Tan, however, worked harder than both, carrying rotted beams, propping up crooked doors, patching broken tiles. Each time he saw An wipe the sweat from her cheek, his heart ached. He longed to confess that she was the girl he once loved, that this house had been their place of promise. But her clear yet unfamiliar eyes silenced him. "She's forgotten. If I tell her, will it only confuse her more?" he thought, choosing instead to stay quiet, watching over her like a silent guardian. Until one afternoon, as they were clearing out debris, a group of strangers arrived. Their faces were menacing, and they declared that the land already had a new owner, demanding the three leave immediately. Han froze while An trembled, clutching her clothes. Tan immediately stepped forward, his voice steady and low. "This is my friend's old land. On what grounds do you drive her away?" The leader sneered. "It was sold to us long ago. If you don't want trouble, then leave." The air tightened like a drawn bowstring. Han panicked, tugging Tana's arm, afraid for his safety. But he stood firm, his gaze unwavering, ready to protect the two women behind him. And in that instant, An looked at him, and suddenly a faint memory flashed in her mind. A man once stood before her the same way, shielding her with that same stance, that same vow of protection. Her heart pounded as she stammered, "You, who are you? Why do you feel so familiar to me?" Tan stiffened, clenching his fist, but said nothing. He wasn't ready for the truth to surface. Yet fate had clearly begun to knock on the door. In the days that followed, the three of them worked tirelessly to clean the old house. Han was always cheerful, chatting away to ease the weariness. Tan, however, spoke little, quietly working harder than both. And An, though she tried to smile, still carried in her eyes a faint melancholy that words could not capture. As evening fell, they sat together under the old mango tree, listening to the wind whisper through its leaves. An absent-mindedly laid her hand on the rough trunk, a strange feeling stirring within her. Ever since Tan appeared and began helping them restore the house, she had felt a strange familiarity, as if somewhere deep in her memory, his presence had always been there. That night, lying on the old bed they had just cleared, An drifted into a strange dream. She saw herself young again, standing under the mango tree beside a boy in a worn shirt. He held her hand and spoke in a warm, steady voice. "An, no matter what happens, I will always protect you." The words made her cry even in her sleep. When she awoke, her eyes were red, and her hand still gripped the edge of the blanket tightly, as if afraid of losing something precious. Night after night, the dream returned, each time clearer. The boy's eyes, the way he stood shielding her, and the gentle smile she thought she had long forgotten. An grew unsettled. She told Han nothing, but quietly observed Tan more. Every glance, every gesture of his shook her heart, like fragments of memory falling into place. Tan, however, kept silent. He knew the truth might shatter on, so he chose to remain by her side quietly, like a friend helping rebuild an old home. What he didn't realize was that his silence only deepened the intensity of Anna's dreams, urging her to seek answers. Then one morning, with the soft light of dawn spilling across the porch, An suddenly asked, "Are you the man from my dreams?" The question froze Tan in place. Han, walking by with a basin of water, was so shocked she dropped it, sending water splashing across the porch. Day by day, the old house grew tidier, slowly resembling a home again. Han, carefree as ever, chattered on, thinking Tan was simply helping out of friendship. She had no idea of the quiet tension between him and An, awkward yet intimate, as though an invisible thread connected past and present. At times, Tan found himself staring at An too long, before quickly looking away. Her heart would pound each time their eyes met, though she didn't know why. Whenever she caught his gaze, she stumbled to find excuses to retreat. Once, while An was arranging broken bricks outside the porch, Tan came over to help, murmuring unconsciously, "Hoa, let me do that for you." An froze, looking up. What did you just call me?" Tan stiffened, then forced a nervous smile. Sorry, I misspoke. Just a habit." But in Anna's eyes, confusion flickered. That name, Hoa, struck a chord deep within her empty memory. That night, the dream returned once again. Under the old mango tree, the boy held her hand and whispered, "Hoa." An awoke in a cold sweat, her heart in turmoil. Why had Tan called her that? Why did her dreams and reality overlap so hauntingly? Han, still blissfully unaware, noticed nothing. She thought it was only natural shyness, never realizing that the past was already finding its way back. After the slip of calling on by the name Hoa, Tan grew even more cautious. Whenever he was near her, he avoided speaking much, burying himself in repairing the roof or hammering new planks. Outwardly, he seemed calm, but inside, waves of emotions churned restlessly. An, on the other hand, became increasingly haunted by that name. Each night, the dream beneath the old mango tree returned, clearer than before. In it, the young man not only called her Hoa, but also gave her a small silver pendant, shaped like a plum blossom. One afternoon, while the three of them were clearing the ruined kitchen, An stumbled upon an old wooden box buried beneath ashes. Its rusty lock broke easily with a slight tug. Inside, aside from some decayed cloth, lay a small object wrapped in a tattered scarf. Her hands trembling, An unwrapped it, and her heart nearly stopped. It was the very same silver plum blossom pendant from her dream. She stammered, Why is this here? Why does it look exactly like the one in my dream?" Han ran over, curious. "Oh wow, probably just a keepsake from the old owner of this house. Lucky find. It's beautiful." But Tan froze. He knew it instantly. It was the very gift he had once given An, or rather Hoa, in their youthful days of love and promise. An turned toward Tan, her eyes filled with confusion, waiting for an answer. Tan clenched his fists, hiding his trembling, and forced out, "Perhaps it's just a coincidence. Don't think too much of it." Yet his husky voice and averted eyes only deepened Anna's suspicions. She could feel there was a secret linking herself, this house, and the man before her. Han, still carefree, happily polished the pendant, unaware that this small trinket was pulling down the veil over the past, uncovering the truth Tan had tried so hard to keep hidden. An gazed at the pendant for a long time, the tarnished silver reflecting the evening sun like light shining from the past. Clutching it in her palm, she whispered, "No matter what, I'll keep it. Somehow, I feel it belongs to me." Han only smiled gently. "Yes, it feels like heaven's gift to you. Hold on to it. Maybe one day you'll remember more." An nodded, but her eyes betrayed unease. That night, placing the pendant beside her pillow, she dreamed again. And this time the dream was so vivid it shook her to the core. She saw herself under the old mango tree, the wind howling, the young man gripping her hand tightly. He clasped the pendant around her neck and whispered, "Hoa, promise me. No matter what happens, don't ever leave me." That voice, that smile. They were so unmistakably Tana's that An burst into tears even in her sleep. When she woke, her pillow was still wet with tears. The next day, as the three continued their work, An found herself watching Tan longer and more often. Every gesture, every glance, every word of his seemed strangely familiar. Many times her lips parted, ready to ask, but she stopped, torn between yearning and fear of the truth. Tan sensed the change. He could feel her gaze pressing against the silence he was trying to hide. But he kept dodging, offering only awkward smiles whenever their eyes met. Han, still innocent, noticed nothing, only that her two friends were becoming oddly quiet, sometimes flustered. She assumed it was simply shyness between new acquaintances. But Tan and An both knew. Ever since the pendant appeared, the past no longer slept. And with each passing day, Anna's memories slowly returned, like puzzle pieces finding their place again. Night fell. After Han and An had gone to sleep, Tan sat alone on the porch, the pale moonlight filtering through the old mango leaves. In his hand was a crumpled old photograph he had just found. Staring at his younger self standing beside An, or rather Hoa, his heart grew unbearably heavy. He whispered to himself, "Hoa, you've truly returned, but your memories are gone. Do I even have the right to awaken them?" Unbidden, the image of Han came to mind. The carefree friend who trusted him, leaned on him, always cheerfully arranging things as though the three of them were simply bound by friendship. Tan clenched his fist, anguish twisting inside. If one day Han learns the truth, that An was once the woman I loved, will she forgive me? Or will this friendship shatter? He imagined the look in Han's eyes, disappointment, hurt, or perhaps betrayal. That thought frightened him even more than facing Anna's forgotten memories. In that moment, Tan realized he was trapped in a storm. On one side, the past with An, on the other, the friendship he now cherished with Han. Whichever path he chose, he risked losing one of the two most precious things in his life. The chirping of insects mingled with the wind rustling through the leaves. Tan lifted his gaze to the night sky, his eyes dark and heavy. How will this end? When the truth can't stay hidden forever? Inside the house, An stirred in her sleep, her hand still clutching the pendant as though gripping the thread of memory itself. And Han, blissfully unaware, slept peacefully, never knowing that within this very house, a secret was slowly driving all three toward an inevitable crossroads. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the old house began to shift. Han still chatted cheerfully, but she started noticing fleeting, elusive moments between Tan and An. One time, while Han was tending the fire to cook rice, she happened to glance out to the porch. Tan was helping An adjust a wooden plank on the door. Their eyes met for a brief second. Both quickly looked away, but Han caught the trace of embarrassment in them. Another afternoon, as the group rested under the old mango tree, Tan slipped up unconsciously. "Hoa, An, you should sit and rest before you get too tired." Han froze. This wasn't the first time he had called the wrong name. But today An didn't react as before. She simply stayed silent, her eyes drifting somewhere far away. That sight pricked at Han's heart, as if there was something she had never been told. That night, Han tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She recalled every detail. The way Tan looked at Anna's unease whenever he helped her, and the name Hoa that kept slipping from his lips. A nagging question echoed in her mind. What exactly happened between the two of them? The next morning, Han tried probing gently. "An, lately, have you been dreaming of something? You always look as if you're lost in some old memory." An startled for a moment, then forced a weak smile. "It's nothing really. I guess I'm just tired." But that answer did nothing to ease Han's doubts. From that moment on, she began quietly observing, searching for the truth behind the vague connection between Tan and On one she sensed could change everything.
Hello mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Chúc mọi người một ngày vui vẻ và hạnh phúc. Hy vọng rằng những video của kênh mình sẽ mang đến niềm vui cho mọi người mỗi khi xem. Và đặc biệt là những câu chuyện mình mang đến sẽ có nhiều ý nghĩa đến cho mọi người. Nếu mọi người thích kênh của mình thì nhớ cho mình một like, share và nhớ bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng những video mới nhất nha. Đặc biệt nhớ cho mình một nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận để mình có động lực làm những video khác hay và ý nghĩa hơn. Nếu cảm thấy kênh của mình hay thì mọi người nhớ chia sẻ giúp mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video của mình. Nhớ bấm nút theo dõi để kênh mình ngày càng phát triển hơn, mang đến những câu chuyện hay hơn cho mọi người. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.